song contest is an illustrious musical tradition that creates lasting bonds and celebrates our Hawaiian culture. Passionate educators and arrangers establish a foundation for excellence and value. Placed on hold for a few years, the choral tradition returns, bringing both excitement and challenges to some 1,800 passionate singers. 1972 brought a new sound of Hawaiian music, rooted in Hawaiian culture and language. This sound was the alarm that woke up dormant traditions and changed the musical landscape of Hawaii. And today, alumni build upon the lessons taught during their song contest experience. Armed with this deep foundation, they lead with our traditional values and blaze a path for a stronger lahui. Join us for the next half hour as we re-examine our cherished choral traditions and continue to sing the songs for the next generation. Ola Mau o Kamehameha, celebrating our Kamehameha musical legacy.
Here's this Kanaka Maoli woman, flanked on all sides by haole men, who are choir directors, who is asserting what I believe to be a very native Hawaiian identity within the tradition.
All of her arrangements we decided was in her bun.
I mean, that's kind of like the running joke.
It is.
It was iconic.
It's there.
And we always used to say that genius is right there.
Oh my God, had you studied her arrangements? It's amazing what this brain and her pu'uvai came out with.
I had really the good fortune of working with Auntie Leila as a student when I was in high school. And I have this memory of being in Kekuhaupio with my freshman tenor or basses, I believe. And Auntie Leila called me up at this first rehearsal of Founders Day music. And Auntie Leila said, now's your chance. And then I was very nervous and I went up and I gave them the breath. And there was a downbeat and no one came in because I had completely forgot to pitch the group. After the rehearsal where I failed miserably, she pulled me to the piano and she said, this is what being prepared for a rehearsal looks like. And she literally just went through the music and then she wrote all these notes in the back. She was like, you need to study your score, make sure you know the breath. And then I remember in big letters underneath, she was like, pitch your choir.
When I looked at Leila, she was smaller than I was. And yet I looked up to her. I thought of her as this great icon. But then when her mother was also in the presence, it was like the queen, the dowager queen. I think she was being honored, whether it was David Malo or something. We were going to Hilton Hawaiian Village, and I snuck away to say hello to Auntie Martha, who was being honored. And as we were talking, she wanted to ask me about some songs of church songs that we were working on. And Auntie Martha said, how does it go? So I started to sing one. She grabs a napkin in front of her and starts notating the song. And I said, well, Auntie Martha, let's talk later. This is your night. So all folk ever focused on their work, both mother and daughter.
Zilla Young, class of 1963, studied opera and choral conducting at Ithaca College, New York, where she was a rising star on a world stage. But she really longed to come back home to teach young people. So she came to Kamehameha as the Girls Concert Glee Club director and was a song contest arranger. She was strong, a highly competent, highly trained musician. She led like the Hawaii Opera Chorus, the Hawaii Symphony Chorus, all while she was in her 20s. Our young Hawaiian women really looked up to her and they idolized her. And she was a force to be reckoned with and so dearly loved.
One of the things that stands out to me most about Dale, while Dale definitely saw his role as a carrier of the tradition, he was really, really proud and excited about the tradition being in the hands of Native Hawaiians. And that is something that he mentioned to me a lot about how happy he was that I was there and how happy he was that Randy was there and how exciting it was that we got to teach these students.
I recognize this woman who is so loving, and yet that's fearlessness. I think we have a lot at Kamehameha to thank her for her being brave and calling out some things that were not right to her. And she really built the program, Hawaiian language program. And it started with, her teaching classes. She eventually created more classes like Hawaiian art class that she used to teach.
And we need to remember, in her 37-year career at Kamehameha schools, I would say half, if not more of that, she was pretty much the only Kumu'olelo Hawaii going to all the rehearsals of all 4 grade levels in all 4 parts. She would often tell her haumana in classes, you know what you got you in here to Kamehameha. And that was your Hawaiianness. And so be proud, be confident, and learn your olelo and other things during these special years at Kamehameha.
Back in September last year, our team kind of gathered to just talk about initial plans for song contests. And we realized that 3/4 of our haumana have never had a song contest experience. And so having that realization, it really got us a little puiva, I guess, at the thought that, well, is this it? Is this the end of song contests after a century of tradition? And well, we thought, no, this is not going to be the end.
Undeterred by the pandemic, Song Contest is in full effect here at Kapalama, and it's so great once again after 2 years to hear, singing parts in the halls, whether it's flat or not, but just hearing our Mele Hawaii and Song Contest songs, especially this year.
For the junior class, it's the first year where we get to sing as a class in the Blaisdell for Song Contest, and it has a big impact on them, and it's a new experience for them.
It's really exciting to get to be a part of this musical legacy and being able to have this experience for the first time as a class.
Knowing that all of our arrangers have made such an impact on Kamehameha's legacy, what are your suggestions on staying true to the music as intended by the arranger while also adding our own flavor?
To me, any opportunity you have to bring the music alive in your own way, do it. But, first, ask yourself, what is the composer saying? Right? What is the arranger trying to express? Honor their intent first, and then you can add your feelings and inspiration and take it to your own new and exciting place.
The question I have for you today is, what makes a good song leader in your own words?
Well, bottom line, you got to connect with your singers, so therefore your class, and you got to know your music inside out. You need to know it so well that if just one person is singing a D sharp instead of D natural, you hear it. And that takes study.
Remember to have fun. It's going to be the performance, and that'll be it. It'll be over that evening. And the hope is that on that night, you and your class will be one, and you will just enjoy the moment, because that is part of Ahaho Okuku Himeni.
I just want to say how important you are to this. This is such a critical time in our tradition, and to have you shoulder the song contest the way that you have amid all of the challenges that the world has faced. I know it's a lot of work, but I mahalo you so much for carrying on this tradition, because the truth is if you don't, who is going to in the world? So you are so important to us, and so mahalo to all of you for caring for this.
The 1970s, that Hawaiian explosion kind of Renaissance thing, was an opportunity for us once again to grab on and to hold on to that side, that ao Hawaii, that is so important to us.
And there I am, the bright lights of Honolulu at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. So there we were, freshmen, and Haunani Bernardino, Haunani B, also lived in the dorm, as I remember it, Hale Laulima. And so Haunani invites us in, because there are several of us college opportunity students, into her room, her dorm room, and something called a phonograph to play this album. But it was this brown album with Gabi Pahinui. the sound, what was that sound? It was a sound of our kupuna, and it wasn't. It was the guttural from the distant past of our kupuna, and then there was a beautiful lilting falsetto, all of which starting with these beautiful instrumentation and then ending in like manner. So it was our kupuna music, and yet it was a refresh.
When I think of pops, because that's what we all called him, I think of one of the most free-spirited people I'd ever met in my life. So innovative, so accepting of wanting to learn new things as much as he could that would help enhance his understanding and his love of music. The first thing that comes to my mind is his guitar lick when he starts Hi'ilave. Such a classic, iconic identification of who we are, where we are, why we are. In that just the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, and then everybody else comes in, and then his just amazing, simple, beautiful, honest Hawaiian voice coming through.
There's an underlying drive and tempo to the music, that cha-chan, 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 but done with all the other things that come together so beautifully that even today, some 50 years later, I can listen to one of those mele, and it just takes me back, number one, to half a century ago, but also brings me here because I still enjoy it.
I think I was just overwhelmed by his aura. He could make you laugh and he could make you cry. And that's not just necessarily to say that he could have you in the palm of his hand, but more so to make you feel like he was putting his arm around your shoulders.
What I was blessed with were all of these things coming together. Hawaiian music, Gabi, of course, the Renaissance, and Olelo Hawaii, and this thing called Kaleo Hawaii, the Voice of Hawaii, which was an hourly, weekly program headed by Kauanoe Kimura.
Mamuli o keia komo anau na opio, a me ko lako, ko mako, hoi hoi, I na mele Hawaii, a me ka malama I ka olelo kekahi, he kokua ke la, I ka ho'ala hou, I ka no'o, I waina o ke kaiaulu ka poe, no na mea Hawaii. O ka poe, ike ole, kamaaina ole I na mea Hawaii, nā nea ko lako pepe au I ka ho'olohe I nā kani ea. No laila, pēlā I ano apo nui ai I ka poe a ho'omaka lako e hoi hoi I ke ia mau kumuhana I ho'opuka ia mana mele.
I appreciate the fact that we are flashing back to 50 years ago and that it entails talking a lot about crack seed. But for me, I'd have to go back one album before that, and that was Guava Jam. Guava Jam was a surprising breakthrough for us. I feel like we were on under a lot of pressure when it came to time to doing crack seed. We had to put more thought into it. We were trying really hard to make sure that people would like it as much as they liked the first. And so that kind of pressure that we put on ourselves, I think, when I think about it now, I laugh a lot. And it was a turning point again for Sunday Manoa, because now, even more so, we had to practice. We had to make sure that we did our songs the best we could, whether they're Hawaiian songs, as classic as Pu'alilea, or as hapahaole as Honolulu, I'm Coming Back Again. I remember when Eddie Kamai and the Sons of Hawaii first came out with a Ku'u Morning Dew. And like many people, I fell in love with it immediately. And when I listened to the words, although I didn't understand a lot of them at the time, what I did understand that it was for someplace that I loved very, very much. Then to have the opportunity to talk to Larry Kimura, Lale, about the song, and he's from Waimea, and then to actually have the correct words and to understand the mana'o behind those thoughts. How not to fall in love with that? How not to want to sing it?
Kela mele mamuli o ko ka ere kamai wahine I lilo wai he haumana na ui ko makahiki mua noa I ho makahe au I ke kulanui mama noa o Myrna kamai ua komo oia I ka upapa makahiki e kahi na leila I ke kau kupulau Yanuali, Pepeluali, kono oia iau e hui me kana kane no ka mea he kane ho kanipila Hawaii hele hui ahi me lau ke kumono na e woho I ke mua o Myrna he mele leo ka eri make oia iau e holohe I ke mea na leila ho kani o eri makahale ki o ia kana ukulele a ho kane a ho lohi wao nani ke kaleo o lelo o ia iau nau e haku I ka o lelo Hawaii ka uni nau ia he a ko manao he a ko manao ko no o lelo o ia ke lahu o lelo makahaole kana I o lelo I wait for me o ia pale no ka mea lohe pine I loko kona no ka o lelo
Because of the Sunday Manoa, that vehicle allowed us to meet people in our community that would today be considered the legends of Hawaiian music. And we were lucky to have those, whether you want to call them makua, friends, kupuna, aumakua, whatever you want to call them, they were there. They were present with us. They aren't here now. Then maybe that's why I'm here. To remind how strong, how fortunate, how overwhelmingly intelligent and clever our people were, are, can still be. We gotta hold on to that. We gotta hold on to that.
And when I think many years later, when I'm honored and privileged to teach at Kamehameha schools, there's this thing called song contest, ho'okuku hi meni, a tradition that, is over 100 years old. And so our students, for over 100 years, have learned these mele, the words, the melodies, the different parts of singing. But really what transcends that is the feeling. We make music at luau, and we make music at funerals. And it's the full sweep of life. That is who we are, Hawaiians.
When I was in high school, my dreams and goals were situated around playing good music. Being able to make that with Jonah, with Nick, in Keoho, has really been a blessing. Keoho means a new current, right? Keoho also means the renewed current, right? It's something that has returned, that has come back. So when it comes to the music that we like, it's not necessarily about, I'm gonna do something really cool and new. It's about, let me catch this current that is circling back around.
It was also a big night at the Nahoku Hano Hano Awards, and for Group A former Kamehameha school students, it was an unforgettable evening.
Apparently, we won the most awards that has ever been won in a night. I didn't expect that, honestly did not expect that. The accolades are obviously have its value, but I also realized that, wow, you know, the awards and the reward is really being able to be in the experience of that whole mele thing. What I can remember as a freshman, you know, coming into Kamehameha, you may have heard about song contests. Be like, okay, what is this? I don't like sing. that whole thing. But by senior year, knowing that whether it's the trophy that's going to motivate you or the fact that it's going to be your last time holding the person's hand next to you and singing in the Blaisdell, there's something about it that people were going to walk away and they're going to miss it, right? And I think that's the most beautiful part about this thing that we call Song Contest. For 100 years, it has brought students, Hawaiians, young Hawaiians together to make music and make so many other things in the process. It's what launches them into whatever they want to do. Whether they're going to do mele for the rest of their life, or if it's something that has nothing to do with mele. It's the camaraderie and the fact that they had an opportunity to be part of something much larger. These mele over more than 100 years now have become this opportunity for these students to gather, to find unison, and that is really a pathway toward lahui, right? How we understand ourselves to be belonging to something larger. I think one of the missions of Kamehameha schools is to embolden that lahui.
This class has worked so hard to learn everything, music.
Sometimes the contest is the promise of winning or the potential of winning. There's so much excitement and so much fun with the idea that, oh, let's win, right? And I don't want to lose and all of that stuff. But I think winning wasn't an individual act in Song Contest. We won because we were accountable to each other. And we understood that that was who we had to answer to first. So the win or the accolade or the whatever is never an individual feat. It's always something that we look to others to say, thank you for helping me get here. And I think that was such a big lesson for me because it's not about my personal gain. It's about what can I do to get the voices out. And then now, working with our own nonprofit, Kahuli Le'olea, I'm realizing that the mission is, how do we make something so fundamental like Aloha Aina or something that's so important, how do we catalyze that with mele? I've experienced this firsthand, how singing the song next to the other person, whether that's in the Neo Blaisdell stands or at Pu'uhuluhulu, these are all opportunities for us to gather, to lahui. Then that's really what our goal is of Kahuli Le'olea. For me, Kahuli means to go over or to turn over or for me to change, right? And how do we make that change? Mekaleolea, with a joyful voice, not with an angry voice, not with a forceful or aggressive voice, but we're making this change happen. We're creating this type of advocacy through something that sounds so sweet. We're really lucky to be working on a whole bunch of different projects that are all aimed at the mission, obviously, but do so in various ways. For example, sometimes it's about the presentation of mele. That amounts to things like Mele Hulia Mahi, which is kind of a discussion and live performance series that talks about what does it mean to Hulia Mahi and how does mele do that. We worked on a project with the Hawaii Council for the Humanities. It was called Why It Matters, and it happened last year. And for us, it was a very simple 5-video series that highlighted people that are advocates for their community, but do so through song, or do so through mele, or do so through poetry. One of our more recent projects was called Mele Ho'opulapula, which is honoring 100 years of the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act. Other things are perhaps less heavy, but still integrated into that train of thought is something like May Day, right? We were super lucky as Keoho to inherit that tradition from our kumu, Robert Casimiro. To, of course, have the beautiful plumerias and the song and the dance and everything that made it should be, but also being able to tell stories that are important through that lens, for us to be able to say, come inside, come sit down, come, let's talk story.